The local legend says that if you touch the willy of this Roman soldier, you have fertility in your life. As you can see, it's a yellow color now. Of all the people that have touched it, they have literally removed the color. How you doing, guys? Welcome to the city of Medellín, a city with a tragic past and a bright present. This is one of the most beautiful cities in Colombia. It's one of the most touristic for good reasons, and I'm gonna show you all around the city. I'm gonna tell you the history of Medellín, how it was able to overcome its very difficult era of violence, and I'm gonna show you some of the most interesting aspects of the city to show you what makes this city so special. So, as always, thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the trip. We start our tour through the city in Medellín's most iconic plaza, Plaza Botero. Who was Fernando Botero? Arguably the most recognized Colombian artist. He's known for these statues depicting fat people, voluptuous people. He wouldn't call them fat, they're just voluptuous, they're big. Once he settled with that style, Botero was doing fat everything. Fat people, fat cats, fat dogs, fat guitars, skeletons. I've been to his museum in Bogota, and everything was in this style. It's very iconic, it's very lovely. There are 23 statues here in this plaza, all original work by Master Botero, worth millions of dollars, and you can find his work all over the world. I was actually introduced to Botero's work in Yerevan, Armenia, of all places, and they had a replica of the Roman soldier statue that I showed you earlier, where if you touch his little willy, remember, you're gonna be fertile, so just for good luck, you gotta do it. And this behind me is the Centro Cultural. It looks like a church, but it's not a church, and it makes for some lovely photos as well. This one behind me is my personal favorite statue, the man and a horse. Just look at this horse and the man overlooking the cultural center. I love Botero's work. It's very iconic, it's very whimsical, very lovely. And I'm gonna show you one more of his sculptures that is probably the most significant for the city of Medellín, so let's stay tuned. One of Medellín's most emblematic features is the metro system. It's the most efficient and affordable way to travel across the city. It was built around 30 years ago. It's very safe, very clean. Don't hesitate to take the metro. It's super affordable and it's really efficient. Medellín is now a peaceful city, relatively so, but it hasn't always been this way. Back in the 80s, back in the 90s, early 90s, Medellín got to be the most dangerous city in the world. At its worst, having 400 homicides per 100,000 people. Imagine that. I have never heard of such numbers. Even El Salvador in 2015, when it was at its worst, was 107 homicides per 100,000 people. So imagine 400 homicides per 100,000. This city was a bloodbath. You probably heard of Pablo Escobar. Of course, he's the most important figure in the drug trafficking world in the 80s. But there's also other cartels here in the city. There's lots of gangs, and they start tearing the population apart. This city was super unsafe, and it would take decades for it to become better. Even after the death of Escobar in the early 1990s, the city still suffered a lot of violence due to the gangs because there was a huge power struggle after his death, and the violence continued for decades. No better sculpture to exemplify this than the Bird of Peace. This was a sculpture donated by Fernando Botero, our very own, here to the city. He donated the statue to this park, to this plaza, and someone put a bomb next to the statue during like a festival. It blew up, killed 20 people, and Botero insisted that they keep the statue here as a reminder of the harsh times that the city dealt with. Remember, he was from Medellín, he loved his city, but he wanted everyone to remember. He donated another sculpture, the same one, he remade it, and now the two sculptures remain side by side as a beautiful symbol of the progress that Medellín has gone through, and an example for the rest of Colombia and how to turn a situation around from the most dangerous city in the world to a tourism haven. This is Medellín's metro cable, built recently to connect the most distant communities in the hills, the comunas, to the downtown, to the rest of the city. So this provides more opportunities for the people in the fringes of the city, so they can have easier access to the more commercial downtown, and also for students to access college as well.
We are now heading to Comuna 13, one of Medellin's 16 neighborhoods. The construction of the cable car in 2006 has now connected Comuna 13 with the rest of Medellin, opening up new opportunities for young people living there. The cable car is also a joy to ride.
You can imagine, before, back in the 80s, there was no metro, no cable car, no road like this. These communities were super isolated, so you can imagine the police had a hard time watching over this, and this was a perfect spot for criminal activity. But now that the government has invested more money in roads and in connecting it to the rest of Medellin, now these communities have access to more opportunities, and the children growing here don't have to resort to illicit activities to make money and to progress. So that's the key, guys. Government spending on infrastructure. So this is the main street, full of tourism. You can buy souvenirs, you can buy shirts, hats, a lot of Pablo merch for some reason. Some say that Pablo is seen like as a Robin Hood figure to these communities, that he gave a lot of money to them. But I have never seen a single Colombian wear his merch. So I think it's more of a tourist thing, but I'm not sure what kind of tourist is buying that merch. Anyways, it's a nice place. To understand the origins of violence in Medellin, we have to go back to the 70s. Take into account most of Colombia's history since its independence has been governed by two parties, conservatives and liberals. These two parties held most of the power for decades. Okay, so in this political environment, conservatives versus the liberals, there arises some new groups. The left-leaning guerrilla groups, which are paramilitary groups that arise in the countrysides, and they lean left, they lean very left. They're Marxist, they're communist, so they start taking over territory. And to combat this, the government starts hiring paramilitary groups, right-wing paramilitary groups, to fight against the guerrillas. So once cocaine production starts in the 70s, these paramilitary groups, both the paramilitaries and the guerrillas, start taking over the production of the cocaine. And we also have these drug lords like Pablo Escobar being the most popular, but a lot of other cartels around Colombia, they start fighting over territory and they take hold of Comuna 13. Why was this place so strategic for them? Because just over that hill, there is one road that leads to the Pacific. So if you have access, if you have control over this territory, then you have control over the most important drug route in Colombia. So you can imagine the huge mess that it was. It was paramilitaries and guerrillas and drug lords fighting to have control over the territory. And a really dark fact is that over that mountain over there in the distance, that's actually a mass graveyard where they would dump all the bodies, you know, of all the murdered people here in the neighborhood. And there's still hundreds and hundreds of bodies that had not been identified. And there's still hundreds of missing people that went missing thanks to the paramilitary groups that have never been found. This behind me is a mural of Operación Orión, which is the most tragic event that happened here in La Comuna. Happened in October 16 of 2022. And it was the government using paramilitary groups to come into the comuna and fight the guerrillas, the FARC, the left-leaning communist guerrillas. The paramilitaries came in and started shooting indiscriminately. So these are the electric escalators that the government built for the comuna. There's 6 of them, so it's just a very small part of the comuna, but it does represent like the progress that the neighborhood has made over the years, and it does provide the local people a bit of rest because they have to climb so many stairs in these hillside communities. Of course, escalators are nice, but it's just 6 of them in the most touristic part of Comuna 13. Most of Comuna 13 still has to climb stairs to get to where they need to be, so these people are getting a good workout. So these are still low-income neighborhoods, and there are still gangs around here, but at least there's no more turf wars, there's no more debating over territory. Before, in the 80s, If you step into the wrong street, you could get killed, essentially. But now they tell me things are much more peaceful. But I mean, this is the reality of most of Medellin. People gotta work hard and the income is low, but at least things have been progressing, and Comuna 13 has become an example of how a neighborhood can turn its luck around. I mean, just imagine like having a house here back in the 80s, and then like a few years back it just becomes a tourist attraction, and suddenly your house is right next to like a tourist strip. It must be so surreal. And a good business too. A lot of the houses will lend you the restroom for 1,000 pesos, so you go into the restroom of these houses and they're making some money just for being in the right location in the comuna. Okay, so what happened? How did the comuna become so safe after years of violence? Well, it turns out that the solution was not fighting violence with violence, but rather institute social reforms and promote education and the arts and music, so that the neighborhood could turn its luck around, so that you could focus on the young people and take them out of these dark situations. You know, if you give a young person the ability to create music or art instead of the only solution for their life being turning to crime, then you'll give them more opportunities, and a lot of these young people did turn to the arts.
Y él le dijo, ¿eso qué significa? Una palabra que ahora no dignifica. Bienvenidos a mi hermoso país, donde te hacemos una arepa si nos das maíz. Aquí no la rebuscamos, con freestyle lo combinamos, y con los mexicanos me quieren mis hermanos. En Milán puedo ser Ronaldinho, en México Lozano, el Chicharito, también Hernández. Un freestyle por todos los Andes, sigo siendo como Vicente Fernández, el ranchero, así me muera el más grande.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this little tour through Comuna 13, an amazing neighborhood that sets the example for all marginalized neighborhoods across Latin America. What they can do if they apply themselves to the arts, to community, and if the government provides positive things as well, if they provide funding for these communities to access infrastructure and better programs, you see what happens. So when you're in Medellin, come here, come have a beer, come have some food, support the local community, support the arts.
But wait, before you go, there's 2 more things you have to do while you're in Medellin. First, eat a bandeja paisa. It's basically a combination of everything: rice, beans, eggs, chorizo, morcilla, chicharrón, arepa, and plantains. You're gonna need the calories in order to climb La Piedra del Peñol, a giant granite stone with a staircase attached.
Alright, here we go. Easy climb. 700 steps. Shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes. Depends how many times you rest, but it wasn't bad.
From the top, you can see a series of peculiar lakes. These lakes were created after the construction of a hydroelectric pump back in the 70s, created to generate energy for Medellin. The area was flooded, and residents of the old town of Peñol were forced to relocate. All they could do was watch as their old town was consumed by the waters. Only a metal cross remains, meant to signify the spot where the old town of Peñol once stood.
Yeah, this is pretty much it. Some beautiful views and climbing a rock. It's a nice little detour if you come to Medellin. I just wanted to include it because everyone does it, but it's pretty cool. We are now in the beautiful town of Guatapé, which I'm actually enjoying more than the actual rock because we see a lot of art. You see how they engraved the walls with these colorful paintings. This is a replica of the old church. Remember how I told you that there was a town before that was flooded? So they replicated the church because they had a lot of protests by the town people that, you know, they didn't want the town to be destroyed. But of course they weren't gonna win against the money to be made by the hydroelectric pump. So the town was destroyed, a new one was built for them, which is now called Nuevo Peñol, but they made this replica to remember their old town. Still looks really lovely.
And with the colorful town of Guatapé, we say goodbye to Medellin. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next adventure.